Lucky Luciano offered him $1 million to leave Harlem. His answer became legend New York, March 14, 1935. A black leather briefcase containing $1 million in cash lay open on the table. Lucky Luciano, the most powerful man in the American mafia, had pushed it toward Bumpy Johnson with a calculated smile. Take the money, disappear, and you'll live like a king for the rest of your days. Bumpy stared at that fortune. Enough to buy 10 buildings in Harlem. Enough to live in luxury for 3 lifetimes. Then he raised his eyes to meet Luciano's. What he said next made the blood freeze in the veins of every mobster in that room, and it changed the rules between the Italian mafia and Harlem forever. This is the story of that night. The night when a black man, in a room full of Italian killers, refused $1 million while looking the boss of all bosses straight in the eye. To understand what happened that evening, we need to go back 2 years. It was 1933, and Harlem was burning. Dutch Schultz, the German Jewish gangster who terrorized New York, had decided to take over the black neighborhood. He wanted the numbers business, the illegal lottery that moved millions of dollars every week. But Dutch hadn't counted on Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy was different from any criminal the mafia had ever encountered. He wasn't just muscle and guns. He was pure intelligence, strategy, patience. He had taught himself to read Shakespeare and Machiavelli in prison. He understood that real power didn't come from blind violence. It came from respect. When Dutch sent 12 killers to eliminate him, only 1 came back alive. But Dutch didn't give up. He kept the war going for 2 years. Shootings, bombings, bodies dropping on both sides. That's when Lucky Luciano decided to step in. Luciano was the head of the commission, the supreme body that governed all mafia families in America. And Dutch Schultz was becoming a problem. The war was drawing too much attention. Newspapers wrote about it daily. The police were investigating. Dutch is out of control, he told his lieutenants. This war needs to end. Then let's take out the Negro, suggested Vito Genovese. Without him, Harlem falls in a week. Luciano shook his head. I've studied this Bumpy Johnson. He's not some stupid street Negro. He's smart. If we kill him, Harlem explodes. We'll have a race war in the streets. Then what do you suggest? Luciano smiled. That cold smile that meant he already had a plan. We buy him. On March 14th, 1935, Bumpy received an invitation. Lucky Luciano wanted to meet him, in person, on neutral ground. His men begged him not to go. It's a trap, said Junie Bird. They'll kill you the moment you set foot in there. If Luciano wanted me dead, Bumpy replied, he wouldn't send an invitation. He'd send bullets. He went alone. The place was called Vesuvio, an Italian restaurant in the heart of the Bronx. The windows were blacked out. 2 armed men stood outside the door. Bumpy walked in. The restaurant was empty. Only 1 table in the back was occupied. Lucky Luciano sat with his back to the wall. On his right, Vito Genovese. On his left, Frank Costello, 2 of the most dangerous men in America. And behind them, at least 6 more armed men. Bumpy counted the exits. If things went south, he wasn't walking out alive. But he showed no fear. He walked to the table like he was walking into his own home. Mr. Johnson, said Luciano, rising. He extended his hand. Bumpy shook it. Mr. Luciano. Sit, eat something. I'm not hungry. Then drink. Luciano poured red wine. This is from Sicily, from my family. Bumpy took the glass but didn't drink. With all due respect, Mr. Luciano, I didn't come here for wine. Luciano smiled. Direct. I like that. Then let's get to the point. Dutch Schultz is a problem. For you, for me, for everyone. Dutch Schultz is your problem, said Bumpy. You created him. Genovese tensed. Nobody talked to Lucky Luciano like that. But Luciano raised a hand, calming his lieutenant. You're right. Dutch has become too violent, too visible. The commission has decided he needs to be handled. But first, we need to settle Harlem. He made a gesture. One of his men brought a black briefcase, set it on the table. Open it, said Luciano. Bumpy opened the briefcase. Inside was more money than he'd ever seen in his life. Stacks of $100 bills filled every inch. $1 million, said Luciano. Cash, untraceable. Take this briefcase and disappear. Go wherever you want. California, Europe, I don't care. Live like a king for the rest of your days. And Harlem? Harlem becomes our territory. We run the numbers, the protection, everything. Clean, organized. Luciano pushed the briefcase toward Bumpy. $1 million to walk away. Nobody will ever give you a better offer. Silence fell over the room. Bumpy stared at the money for a long moment. $1 million. In 1935, that kind of money could buy a whole building. You could live like royalty for 50 years. You could vanish to Mexico, Europe, anywhere in the world, and never work another day in your life. Bumpy thought about his wife, Mamie. Thought about the life they could have. No more violence, no more wars, no more nights wondering if he'd see the sunrise. Then he thought about Harlem. The children playing in the streets, the women going to church on Sundays, the old folks sitting on stoops telling stories about the South, his people. Then he raised his eyes to Luciano. "Can I tell you a story, Mr. Luciano?" Luciano frowned. "A story? A short one. Go ahead." Bumpy leaned back in his chair. "When I was 10 years old, back in Charleston, a white man came to see my father. He owned the land where we worked. Offered my father $50 to leave our home. A fortune for us." He paused. "My father refused." The man asked why. My father said, "This land was worked by my father and by my father's father. Their sweat is in this soil. You can't buy the sweat and blood of my ancestors for $50. Bumpy leaned forward. The man laughed, said my father was a stupid Negro. 2 weeks later, they burned our house down. My father died in the fire. The silence was absolute. But you know what, Mr. Luciano? My father was right. Some things can't be bought. Not for $50. Not for $1 million. Bumpy snapped the briefcase shut. Harlem is my home. My people built that neighborhood with their sweat and their blood. I've bled for those streets. You can't buy all that with a briefcase full of cash. Genovese jumped to his feet. "Who the fuck do you think you are?" "I know exactly who I'm talking to," said Bumpy without raising his voice. "I'm talking to the most powerful man in the American mafia. The man who could have me killed with a snap of his fingers." He stood up slowly. "But I'm also talking to an intelligent man. A man who understands that killing me wouldn't solve anything. Harlem would rise up. And you'd find yourself in a war you can't win." "We could level Harlem in a week," Genovese growled. "You can level the buildings," Bumpy replied. "But you can't level an idea. You can't kill the dignity of a people. Dutch Schultz tried for 2 years. Look where he is now, hiding like a rat." Luciano hadn't said a word. He watched Bumpy with an unreadable expression. "What do you propose, then?" Bumpy looked him dead in the eye. "A partnership. You eliminate Dutch. I keep running Harlem. I pay you a percentage of all profits. You get your money without having to manage a territory you don't understand. I keep my people safe. Everybody wins. And if we don't accept, then we go to war. And in a war, everybody loses, even the winner." Luciano drummed his fingers on the table. His men waited for the verdict. One word and Bumpy would be dead. But Luciano didn't say that word. Instead, he laughed. A real laugh, genuine amusement. "You know something, Johnson? In 30 years in this life, I've met thousands of men. Politicians, judges, killers, bosses from every family. And you know how many have had the balls to refuse $1 million while looking me in the eye?" He paused. 0. Until tonight. He stood and extended his hand. "You've got your partnership. 15% of the profits. In exchange, Harlem is under my protection. Nobody touches your territory without answering to me." Bumpy shook his hand. "Deal." "But Johnson..." Luciano squeezed harder. "If you betray me, there won't be any place in the world where you can hide." "I never hide, Mr. Luciano. That's not my style." That evening, Bumpy Johnson walked out of Vesuvio with something more valuable than $1 million. He walked out with Lucky Luciano's respect. 6 months later, Dutch Schultz was gunned down in a New Jersey restaurant. 4 bullets in the chest ordered by the commission. Bumpy Johnson ruled Harlem for another 30 years, not as a puppet of the mafia, as a partner, an equal. He was the only black man in the history of the American mafia to earn that recognition. Years later, when reporters asked him about that night, Bumpy would smile. Money comes and goes. Respect lasts forever. That night, Lucky Luciano learned to respect me, not because I was rich, but because I was a man who couldn't be bought. And if he'd ordered them to kill you, Bumpy would shrug. Then I would have died a free man. And that's worth more than all the millions in the world. That's why they called him the Godfather of Harlem. Not for the money he had, not for the men he commanded, but for the respect he earned. A respect that even Lucky Luciano, the boss of all bosses, couldn't help but recognize. That night at Vesuvio became legend in the streets of Harlem. The old-timers still tell it to the young ones. How Bumpy walked into that room full of killers alone. How he looked at $1 million and said no. How he made Lucky Luciano, the man who built the modern mafia, understand that some things money can't buy. They say when Bumpy died in 1968, more than 2,000 people came to his funeral. Politicians, musicians, ordinary folks, even a few Italian mobsters who came to pay their respects. And on his grave, someone left an empty briefcase. A final tribute to the man who refused $1 million to stay loyal to his people. Because true wealth isn't counted in bills. It's counted in the respect you carry to your grave. And Bumpy Johnson carried more than anyone. This story reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. Some men don't have a price. And those men, only those men, change history.